All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll pray for us. Father, as we look at the Psalms today, would you help us see how the New Testament writers are seeing these Psalms, and I pray that you use it to help us how to read these Psalms. And I pray that the end of today that we'll love you more and love your word more, and that we'll be delighted in your word, and that we'll treasure it in our hearts and practice it in our lives. And we pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen. So what I want to do is look at 2 or 3 Psalms today. And we want to start with Psalm 45. And one of the things I like to do in my classes is when other classes get very busy, I try to have the assignments go down in this class because I want to reward you for your hard work. And I know you have other class work, so we're just going to do this together. We're going to study these together. This is in Book 2 of the Psalter, at the beginning of Book 2. And I'm going to read it, and you tell me what you find interesting. It's a short psalm. I'll try to point out some words here and there, but this is what it says. To the choir master, according to the lilies, a mashkal. And you know that Psalm 14 that we looked at where it says, there are none who seek God, none who are wise. Mashkal is the word for that. So it looks to me like a hiphil participle from the word wise, the one causing wisdom. But there's a debate. It may be some kind of musical term, but to the choir master, or to the boss, according to the lilies, the one causing wisdom, of the sons of Korah, a love song. And this word love reminds me of kind of an affectionate love between 2 lovers, I think is maybe the background of it, the delight of 2 young lovers in each other. So it says this, my heart overflows with a pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured out upon your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one. Remember how we talked about El Gibor, the God Almighty? This is the Almighty, or the warrior part of that Gibor. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty, ride out victoriously. For the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness, let your right hand teach you awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies. The peoples fall under you. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you. This is the word Messiah, has Messiahed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are fragrant, all fragrant, with myrrh and aloes and cassia. From ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. The daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor. At your right hand stands the queen in the gold of Ophir. And this word queen is a really weird word in Hebrew. We may come back to that. Hear, O daughter, consider and incline your ear. Forget your people and your father's house. The king will desire your beauty, since he is your Lord. It's 12. Since he is your Lord's, really, in Hebrew, bow down to him, really the word worship elsewhere. The people of Tyre will seek your favor, and the "your" there is the woman, not the man. The people of Tyre will seek your favor with gifts, the richest of the people. All glorious is the princess within her chamber, with robes interwoven with gold. In many-colored robes she is led to the king, with her virgin companions following behind her. With joy and gladness they are led along as they enter the palace of the king. In place of your fathers, and the "you" are there, is I guess it's feminine. In the place of your fathers will be your sons. You, woman, will make them princes in all the earth. I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations. And there the "your" is the man. Therefore nations will praise you, and there it's the man forever and ever. All right, weird little psalm. What do you find interesting about it? Weird isn't the right word. Little bit confusing. Jeff?
It mentions the people of Tyre. In my translations, the daughter of Tyre. What significance do they have?
Tell me the verse there.
12.
So 12 in English is 13 in Hebrew, because they don't do that little title part as verse 1, but the Hebrew does. So it says, the daughter of Tyre, singular, and then it says a text variant, the Septuagint has daughters of Tyre. So that's interesting. With a gift, we'll seek your face, and the "you" there is the woman. The daughter of Tyre with a gift will seek your woman's face, the riches of the richest of the people. What else do you find interesting? What's this psalm about? What would you think this psalm is about? Who are the two people in this psalm? Two main people in this psalm. A couple that's about to be married. What do you notice about that couple that's about to be married? Sorry? Yeah, they're blessed by God. Half of it's about the man, half of it's about the woman.
There's royalty, like he's a king, and it says that he rides out victoriously with truth and weakness and righteousness. So he's a good king.
He's a good king.
They call them the king and queen, even though they're not married yet.
Yeah. So where is she called a queen?
He said, yeah, stands the queen in gold from Ophir.
Okay. So can I make a comment and don't get mad at me? But we're just going to do a word study, okay, about this word translated queen. And so what did we say it was? 45:9. And if we go 45:9, do you see how it's 45:10 in Hebrew? So the number, whenever you are reading a commentary, they'll put one number in brackets, and what they're telling you is there's a difference between the two. Okay, so I'm just going to do the word queen, and you see the standard Hebrew lexicon goes with the word queen, but I'm just going to say look up everywhere that word appears elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible, and you tell me what is interesting about this. You will betroth a wife, and another man will ravish her. Okay, and do you see how this word is in brackets, and then this word is in square brackets? Do you see that? Okay, in the Hebrew Bible, there's a thing they do, and it's called the Kethiv Kireh. Kethiv is what's written, and then they have the Kireh is what's read. And there are places in the Bible where they have these little notes, and they'll say, don't read this out loud, say this instead. That's called the Kethiv Kireh reading. Standard one is, so-and-so cursed God. Well, the scribes wouldn't write that. They were afraid that you might say curse God out loud, and they didn't want to say that. So they actually replaced the word and then just marked it in the thing, and it's called the Tikkunei Soparim, the 18 places where they made changes to the text. This is a milder one, Kethiv Kireh, so the word ravish is what's written. But in the marginal note, the Kireh says, say the word slept with. Okay. So that word ravished is the word shagal. So tell me what the word shagal means. I mean, you want to say raped, almost. But can it mean rape in 45? These two people who are just delighted to be married with each other? So tell me what shagal means then in that context.
Would it be like the same as going into?
Yeah, there's a different word for that in Hebrew, but
could it maybe be a little bit milder and maybe saying that you shall be betrothed to a wife, but another man shall marry her?
Marry, yeah. There is another word in Hebrew for marry, Baal. It seems to me that there is something intensely sexual about this, and that it's intensely sexual enough that the scribes are saying you probably shouldn't read this out loud when you read the text. But in Psalm 45, it has to be in a positive sense, not a negative sense. But we don't really have a word for that, do we? But do you see the sexual nature of the word? Let's see if the others have sexual nature a part of it. Or a question.
Do you think that verse has anything to do with the other verse?
let's keep reading and see. Okay, the king said to me, the shagale sitting beside him, how long will you be gone, and when will you return? So this is a pagan king, and the woman sitting beside him is called a shagale. Could you say consort, the royal consort? But do you see this is consort in the sense of more than just good buddies? Like, it's the king's lover, right? Do you see that? So Nehemiah 2:6 has to be positive. Deuteronomy 28:30 is negative. Psalm 45, daughters of the kings are among your ladies, and I just want to make sure I'm parsing this right. Yeah, they're saying the you there is the man. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor. At your right hand, that has to be the man. Stands the shagale, this royal consort, in the, I mean, you could almost, in the royal gold weaved clothes or something, in spectacular clothes. Isaiah 13:16, their infants will be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be plundered and their wives will be shagaled. And do you see how this has a Kethiv Kareh reading too? So it's saying shagal is the word written, but that word is too indelicate. So say the word slept with. Their wives will be slept with versus shagaled. Lift up your eyes to the bare heights and see, where have you not been shagaled? Now, this can't be the word rape, because this is a willing woman participant, but it's this same word shagal, and notice they're doing a Kethiv Kareh, and they're saying, don't say the word shagal out loud, say, where were you not slept with?
This may be something like a willingness on the part of the wife, but also like a ripping away from someone else, basically.
There's something in this word that the scribes thought indelicate enough that they're telling you don't say it out loud.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like in a sexual sense, like it could be like you're taking someone away from someone else.
A willing, yeah. I don't know. And then 14:2, I'll gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city will be taken, the houses plundered, and the women shagaled. And you can see there's a Kethiv Kareh. It says, don't say the word shagal, say the word slept with. Okay, so my question is, when this woman is called a shagal, what does it mean?
Someone who's been ravished.
Right, I think ravished one, or the like, don't we say in English the ravishing one? Or do you hear why they're struggling with how to translate this? I mean, we can't even translate it in English, can we? So we just call the queen, but it kind of hides that background, doesn't it? This is an intensely sexual desire word. And even the title of the psalm, a love poem, I think that word like beloved in Song of Solomon is related to that word. It's this really affectionate, kind of over-the-top word. So these are two people who are going to be married, and they just can't wait to be together, right? Would you grant that? What do you find interesting, Jack?
So, since Queen and this is to be like the ravished one, what's the significance of the Queen in gold of fear?
I think this is the Queen dressed up in the most beautiful clothes imaginable.
It seems at least a little bit to be intentionally reflect the relationship between Jesus and the bride of Christ of the church.
And why would we think that?
Because they're betrothed, but they're not married yet, and because there's incredible desire to be together. It says to leave those old ways behind, leave like all of your old stuff behind.
Yeah. Have you ever been around two people who like waited to be together when they get married? Like, what's kind of forefront on their mind? This is kind of nice, but we're not going to stay that long, kind of thing. And is it interesting to you that of all the images picked out for the consummation, that's the image that's picked out, the marriage supper of the Lamb? Two people who are betrothed but who haven't come together yet. Rachel?
Well, I was actually thinking along the same lines as her, but like there's a part, it's verse 6, where it's like, but right before that he was talking to some man or something like that she was going to marry, but then it starts saying your throne, and it says, oh God, as though it's talking to him as though he is God or something.
God. Did you pick up that this king is called God in the psalm?
Isn't there a part in the New Testament where like a woman who's widowed marrying another person? Something very similar to this, like that's almost like her being redeemed in that way.
Yeah, that's a whole Ruth story, isn't it?
Well, in the New Testament, though, isn't there like something about like it's okay for a woman who's
Romans 7. Yeah, that's right. Forget you were in a bad marriage and that guy died. Forget that. Now that's exactly right.
Wouldn't that just be a symbol of Christ? Because it's like all this symbolism of like marriage and stuff. It also has a connotation of like slavery, so to speak, with like being enslaved to Christ opposed to being enslaved to sin.
Yeah.
Being like ravished would be like being taken, but being taken willingly, just being taken away from another master.
Yeah. So where is this applied to Jesus in the New Testament? Sorry? Ephesians 5 does the whole bride of Christ. For this cause a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And then Paul says, I'm telling you, this is a great mystery. And then he's saying, but it's about Christ and the church. It's not about Adam and Eve. That's kind of a spectacular thing to say. Paul's saying, if you want to know what that passage is about, it's about Christ and the church. Is there any place where Psalm 45 verbatim is applied to Christ? Hebrews 1. For which of the angels did he ever say, you are my son? Today I've begotten you, and again I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. When he again brings the firstborn into the world, he says, quote, let all the angels of God worship him. Now, if you can remind me, I'll probably forget to go back to this one. This one's like spectacular. But we're talking about another one right now. But of the angels, he says, who makes his angels winds and his ministers a flame of fire. But of the Son, he says, so who is the writer of Hebrews understanding as the person spoken of in Psalm 45? The writer of Hebrews says it's about Jesus. But of the Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever, and the righteous scepter is the scepter of his kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. Therefore God, thy God, has anointed, has messiahed you with the oil of gladness above your companions. Okay, help me with that. What seems weird about that to you? Or does anything seem weird about that to you? We have a psalm. Would you grant that that psalm is a little steamy? Like the queen, the king's daughter is all glorious within. I mean, that seems kind of weird. You're talking about two people being married. It's like she's dressed up in a beautiful way. It's like, this is a little too honeymoonish for me. And yet, is that a psalm that you would be tempted to apply to Jesus? Naturally speaking, I think no. And yet the writer of Hebrews says, no, it's about Jesus. What do you find interesting about that? Jesus is the king of Psalm 45. Sorry? Who's the queen? I mean, half of Psalm 45 is about the girl, right? And what's she told to do? She's told the king's going to desire your beauty. She's told, forget your family. Your sons are going to replace your fathers. Is that something you would be tempted naturally to apply to Jesus? That seems strange.
I think it's really interesting because what you were saying with the word ravished, they didn't say that because they were afraid it was wrong to say. So it's almost like because God is telling them earlier in other parts of Scripture not to be sexual or to that's unholy. And it's but at the same time, it's this is supposed to be the image of God.
This is embarrassing to read, and yet the New Testament writers found Jesus in that psalm. That seems pretty amazing to me. Now, you could say they're just, doing bits and pieces. It's just part of a verse here, part of a verse there. That doesn't seem like it's the way they're arguing. The writer of Hebrews is trying to prove that Jesus is better than the angels, and his argument is he's better than the angels because God calls him God. If Psalm 45 were about David and one of his lovers, you would say, well, to the writer of Hebrews, your argument makes no sense because Psalm 45 isn't about Jesus. But the writer of Hebrews 1 says Psalm 45 is about Jesus. And once you say it's about Jesus, it's like, wow, I'm not sure what to do with that. And, how many other people in the Psalms do they call God? In your experience? Like you're singing a psalm in church and you start calling the, minister of music God or the preacher God or, the deacon or elder God. Does that happen usually in your church? Yeah, heresy church. But they're calling this person God. Your throne, Elohim. And what's the married woman, how is she supposed to respond? Is it verse? All glorious is the princess in her chamber with robes interwoven with gold. No, that's not the one I want. Oh, yeah. The king will desire your beauty, since he is your Adonai. Okay. What do they use Adonai for in the Hebrew Bible? It's a replacement of Yahweh, but who else calls their husband Adonai? Well, let me ask you men in here, do some of you have girlfriends, like pretty steady girlfriends? Okay. You walk in the room, do they typically dress you as Adonai? Do they typically fall down on their... No? Really? No. The king will desire your beauty, since he is your Adonai. Bow down to him. So I'm just going to do a word study. So this is 12 in Hebrew, and keep me honest. So I'm not trying to pull a fast one here. Oh, help if I was in the right book. So this is our word. See, it's the same word, right? So I'm just going to say, look up everywhere that word appears in the Hebrew Bible, and it appears. It appears a lot. Let's just do the Psalm ones. Okay, so this is where it's used in Psalms. But I, through abundance of your steadfast love, will enter your house. I will hishtavah to your temple. Okay. Day. Oh, it's probably not helpful. The ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of the world will yishtavah before you. What is that word? All the families of the earth will worship. 22:30. All the prosperous will eat and will yishtachevu, will worship. 29:2. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Hishtaveu to YHWH. What does it mean there? Worship. 45:12 to the woman. Since he is your Adonai, Hishtahevi lo. Bow down to him. 66:4, all the earth Hishtavahs you. Psalm 72:11, all the kings Hishtavah before him. 81:10, there shall be no strange God among you. You shall not bow down. Tishtah hever them. 86:9, all the nations will come, and they will yishtah hevu before you, O Lord. 95:6, oh come let us and so the way you do that, he, she, it, is you put little stuff on the beginning, so this is the you one. Nishtaheveh. Can you hear how all these words are exactly the same word in Hebrew? 96:9. Hishtahvevu to YHWH. 97:7. All the worshippers of images will be put to shame. 99:5. Exalt the Lord. Worship Hishtah Hevu at his footstool. 99:9, exalt our God, and Hishtahevu, toward the mountain of our God. 106:19, they made a calf at Horeb, and Yishtahevu it, to a molten image. 132:7, let us go to his dwelling place, let us nishtaheveh at his footstool. 38:2. Okay, so help me. What seems weird about 45:12?
You really couldn't say that to a non-God figure.
Yeah. I mean, if you were getting married and the minister charged the woman, okay, I want you to call your husband Adonai, and when he walks in the door, I want you to Hishtavehu him. Get down on your hands and knees and worship him like you worship Yahweh. Is that going to work? Is that minister going to do many wedding ceremonies? So this is kind of intense, so I'm going to tell a joke now just for comedic relief. In the New Testament, the word one's own is the word idios. We get the word idiot from it, like somebody who lives in their own world. So a friend of mine was telling me he was at a wedding in Atlanta, and the guy was giving the charge to the woman and said, now, Ephesians says, wives, submit to your own husbands in the Lord. And he said, now, the word in Greek is the word idios. So the admonition there is, wives, submit to your idiot husbands. Which is not true, but it's funny, isn't it? But doesn't it strike you as strange that this woman is told, get down on your hands and knees, call your husband my Adonai? And Adonai, is Adonai singular or plural? Plural. So it isn't call him my Lord. That would be Adoni in Hebrew. But when you say Adonai, you're saying my lords. Now, Sarah does call Abraham my lords. And she's committed for it in one of Peter's epistles. But do you get a sense of how strange that is? Now, we've smoothed over it a little bit by translating Shageo as queen, and we've smoothed over a little bit by translating it bow to him. But there's a different word for bow. Like if you want to bow the knee, barak is a word. This is a word that it's so weird that the stem it's in is called a hishtafel or something like that. But it's weird. Every time you see it in the text, it's like, oh, that's that weird worship word. It is applied to men every now and then. And so it's like, what in the world's going on? But you can feel how strange it is in this marriage ceremony. And you can feel how strange the speaker calling the king, he doesn't call him El, right? Or even Eloah. It says, and your throne Elohim. So what's true of Elohim? Singular or plural in the Hebrew? Plural. Your throne, O Elohim, is forever and ever. The scepter of righteousness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness. Did David love righteousness? And you've hated wickedness. Therefore, Elohim has Messiahed you. Elohim, that is your Elohim. The writer realizes that Elohim shouldn't be applied to this, but it is being applied. And then, who in the world are these companions? Your Elohim has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your companions.
Do you think the writer understood what this meant?
I do.
So would you say that people in the Old Testament that were saved, do you think they knew like what exactly Jesus was supposed to be? Not that they knew who Jesus was, because he hadn't come yet, but like what he was supposed to be.
Well, even when we read it, did it strike you as odd at first about the Elohim? But what do? We read it, it strikes you as odd. What do? It's not important. Isn't that kind of what we do? And maybe God's saying, don't do that.
So, in English, when it goes to like Adonai, we usually do capital L, capital O, R, D, right? Why did they not do that in 4512 in the English translation? Because they just have it all lowercase versus capitalized.
So here's the thing. You've got the Old Testament and the New Testament. If you have this, oh wow, that's weird. Writing English backward. But what about if you have YHWH What if you had those two words together? How would you do it? Well, what they did and what they do in English is this, they'll do L-O-R-D. This, they'll do guess what they do in the New Testament? They put everything in lowercase. Even the direct quotes they put in lowercase. Even these direct quotes they put in lowercase.
It's almost like more emphasis. You know what I mean?
So when Philippians 2 says, therefore the Father gave him the name, the one above every name. What name would that be to a Jewish person? So that every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is. I mean, if they did that, that would get it, wouldn't it? And what they do is this. That's not right. When you do this, and you've done this in the Old Testament, it draws a wedge between those two things. And in favor of the translators, they're saying, well, the Tetragrammaton doesn't appear. And it's like, that's right, it doesn't appear because it's not written in Hebrew. Right? This is written in Greek. This is written in Hebrew, but if you're quoting this, wouldn't it make sense to do at least the quotes this way? The places where you could argue from the context.
So, since this is still the Old Testament, 45:12 still has it like even the L is lowercase. So that's making you infer that it's the actual king that we're talking about, not the Adonai.
So the king isn't called the Tetragrammaton.
Okay.
here. He is called the Tetragrammaton elsewhere.
Gotcha.
And you might say, well, where else is he called the Tetragrammaton? And I'm glad you asked. I remember the first time I read this in Hebrew, it was kind of stunning. And it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to do all his commandments. That's not the one I want. I want this one. And in his days, this is talking about the Messiah, Judah will be saved and Israel will dwell securely. And this is the name by which he will be called. What is this word? Our righteousness. The Lord is our righteousness. And do you know this guy's married? Well, what's his wife's name? In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell securely. And this is the name by which Jerusalem will be called. What is this? Same exact words. Even Jewish people admit the 23:6 is the Messiah, and you say, well, how many times in the Old Testament is somebody called YHWH, like spell it out in full letters, all caps? How many times that happened? And they say, well, never, except here. Huh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And his wife's called the same thing he is. The two will be one flesh. So might Psalm 45 mean more than we thought it meant at the very first? And might it be that these Psalms are much more Christocentric than we've taken them to be?
Just like it occurred to me that in this time, marriages were still arranged by other people, and it was kind of a big deal if your husband delighted in his wife like he actually really liked her. So I think this is meant to be encouraging that it's not just an arranged marriage, it's that Jesus does really wants.
He'll desire his bride. He'll delight in her beauty.
And I think it's even crazier if you think that like Psalm 45 is kind of saying that she is not a virgin. Like that's what, but it's saying that she's been ravished. She's the ravished.
Yeah, I'm not sure Shagale implies that, but I know how you would get there. Particularly if it's doing that whole Romans 7. I'm not sure we have a word, the ravishing one, or the... I mean, it's used of in Nehemiah of the king's wife, and they're married, the ravished one. I don't know, that's a case where you're trying to get at a word in one language and you don't really have the right word in the other language to get at it. All right, I'll see you on Wednesday.